welcome to the next session. It's about PlantUML. Has any one of you ever worked with PlantUML? Who has never heard of PlantUML? Okay, interesting. So that's a little bit about my background. So I'm a Foxpro developer for nearly 30 years. And I started to be a professional developer in Servoy in 2019. So I'm a pretty newbie to Servoy if I compare myself to others here. So please forgive me if I do something wrong in Servoy. I'm mainly interested in writing better code. This is about, I'm interested in have robust code and to have maintainability, more maintainability in the code. That interest came through my long experience in developing crappy code. So, and I'm trying to get better. I'm still trying. And I'm interested in tools which help me to do this. So every tool which keeps the dull work away from me and helps me to avoid errors is good for me. So this is about documentation. The whole session is about documentation. Who of you loves to do documentation? Really? I knew this would be a hard session. But who of you really needs documentation sometimes and is missing something? No one. I can go? Okay. Okay. So there seems to be some demand for having some kind of documentation. So what we will not do here is do anything in coding in Servoy or JavaScript or whatever. So if anyone is expecting this, take a branch. What I find very interesting is to be able to create graphics out of code. So just have a text representation, which then is represented as a graphic. I feel that some parts of our applications cannot be described really in text. If I look into a Git commit or a Git history commit, I don't have a feeling about what architectural aspects this change might have had. I think most of you have the same feeling about it. Yeah? So we added a field here and some methods there, but what is the effect of the on the architecture of that application? Sometimes we need just some documentation just because the customer wanted to have it. What about customers who want to have a database diagram? I've never heard of that. And if it's missing from your documentation, you have a problem, because then you need to write it yourself. If you don't use a design tool for your database, how will you create that one? Reverse your database? Who of you is doing that? Reverse it?
Power design.
Yeah. What about the relations in Servoy?
Yeah,
they are not in the database, so it's a partial documentation. Yeah. So what are my main reasons to use it? Okay, if I have a graphic which describes something in my code which is complicated, then it helps me to understand what's happening there. If I have complicated stuff, here, this one here, how do you communicate with a newbie which enters the team? Hey, here's happening this. Look at the code. If you don't have a graphic which describes dependencies, for example, it's really hard to communicate with a teammate. This works like this. If you change here, you have to take care of this and this part of the application. Yeah? I think all of you who are working in teams might have had this problem, yeah? So, and as I already said, contractual terms. The customer just wants to have it. At least he wants to have a database diagram. You don't have a database diagram, will not pay you. So, UML. That's the name of PlantUML. Who of you has ever worked with UML? Was it nice to do? I have to confess, I'm not really a fan of UML. In the 90s it came up, and it was advertised as this is the solution for designing applications. So there were a lot of UML tools. Most of them were pricey. You draw some diagrams, press a button, and get your code. Did that work? No, it didn't work. It wasn't worth the effort. The only thing you had a nice description of your architecture, but your code was something totally different. You needed to write your code, and this code then differed from the diagrams, and from my perspective, it was a waste of time. So why does UML suck? Let me show us an example. That's my personal point about UML. You do not need to agree, obviously. So this is a part from the PlantUML website. Here you can see you can define a couple of different types to connect objects.
Would you zoom in a little bit? Is that possible?
Yep. It's not that important there. It's just okay. It's just about you have 15 types of different arrow dots and lines to describe the associations between objects. And I myself can only remember at least 2 or 3. And I always choose the wrong type. That's why UML really sucks to me. I never could think of or just remember all the specifications which are in there. Now I got lost. But I'm a pragmatic programmer, and it helps a little bit because most of the people know some types of these diagrams, so then at least see, okay, this is a class diagram, and I do not need to invent a new notation for describing something. So if I use the right type of arrow, I don't care. So how do we normally create UML diagrams? So we have the usual suspects. It's PowerPoint, Visio, Draw.io. I even know some guys using Paint or Excel to create something graphical. I think currently PowerPoint is the thing which is mostly used for that, but only because everyone has it up on his machine.
And it's so simple, you know. You just put something there and it's there.
Yeah, it's easy to use. You don't need a training session like this to do it differently. So, but my problem with these things is they just create binary files. Each platform has each application has a binary file which is created. Okay, the .x and plant or however they are called, they are zip files with XML in it. But hey, it's still a binary file. You cannot put it into Git and compare. Yeah? And there are others which are in cloud. You have no way to use them, reuse them, yeah? The only thing to reuse them is, hey, take a screenshot, put it somewhere, put it in a Word document or something. I'm pretty sure every one of you already has seen something like this or done it, because that's the only way to share it. It's far away from Git repo. So we are using, most of you, Who's not using Git or something like that? Everyone. So the history of your application is in Git. You can see I changed that line of code, but you cannot see how this graphics which belong to your code changed. So it's away from your Git. You cannot go to point X and see what are the differences between two models. Okay, there are tools which can compare graphics, like Beyond Compare or something. They say, oh, there is something changed in that diagram. Okay, but that's far away from context, really, yeah? And the great problem with that is, if it's not in your repo, it gets outdated really early. So the worst part, or the worst possible documentation for me is I have a look into the documentation and I see easily it's not matching my current code. So I close it and let me look at it. I'm pretty sure most of you had the similar experience, yeah? So, why PlantUML? The PlantUML gives you a way to define text, define your graphics in text, and this text can be in your code, it can be embedded in your code, it can be separate files, and then PlantUML is a toolkit which generates graphics out of this code. It's used pretty everywhere. There are plugins for most platforms, even Visual Studio Code and Eclipse. And I found out even this Google Sheets thingy have plugins for PlantUML. So you can put your PlantUML code in there and it generates the diagram. Nice. So it's you can define easily objects, but the really astonishing part in PlantUML is that it defines, that it creates or draws the relations between the objects. If you think of using Visio or something like that, you can connect things, stick lines to objects, and you move. And when you move them around, you have a problem because the links are, yeah, you need to draw the links somewhere so that they do not cross or interfere or whatever. And that's what PlantUML does. It optimizes the links between the objects. The diagrams not only look that perfect, but they are readable. Another point is PlantUML can create different types of diagrams. It's not only UML. You can visualize JSON, entity relationship diagrams, Gantt mind maps, and YAML. So you can visualize these documents. And that's pretty easy. As I said, diagrams can be embedded in your code. You just need to install an Eclipse plugin. I'm using this now for 1.5 years, and I never had problems with stability or with Servoy updates. It worked. It just worked. In comparison, Patrick Talbot had a thing out there which was there to design your database in a graphical way. It was a really cool thing, but it was a nightmare to install because there were so many dependencies. But this is the way around. And now let's show some demos. So what I did is I just, let's try to answer one. So here you can see I just launched a browser and there was a large URL. So what PlantUML can do is to embed a whole diagram as a URL. This is the online website from PlantUML.org. You can go to this site and just have the diagram text, which you can see here, as the URL. This form just can convert this, and this here is the diagram which is created out of this text code here. So every plant thingy starts with a start UML and ends with a end UML. That's always the case. And everything which happens between them is just your diagram. So here you have some if, an end, if, and a go, and a yes, and a no. And this is the diagram which we created out of this. Sometimes it's not pretty obvious how to create this diagram. What I do is just do a Google search. This is the start page. It's in German, sorry for that. I want to create a activity diagram. By the way, I'm using two types of diagrams mostly. One is activity diagram and the other one is class diagrams that really help me to define something. So let's have a look at the activity ones. So if the thing I want to define is something like this one here, I want to have this diagram, then I just copy this code and then start to work on that one. I add another if, play around how this is rendered, and I pretty early get to something which is really nice to work with. This one. So these diagrams are always generated out of this, what is on the left side here shown. Yeah? So take just the code, okay, take it from here and put it into your favorite application which can render that one. So in Eclipse you can do that. Partially you can use Visual Studio Code. Let's code. Let's see that. Visual Studio Code. Create a new diagram. Select the language. This is PlantUML. Paste in the code on the left side. Okay, it's not in the clipboard. Use that one. Paste it in here. Press Alternate D for diagram. And here we are. So that's an easy way to define your diagrams. The Visual Studio Code has a plugin which is helpful because it has code completion, partially at least, and it can show show colors of if you have to do any problems. So that's my favorite tool to design a new diagram. So now that was it about how these diagrams look, how you define them, that you can send them as a URL to something. Potentially you can create or you have a browser, you have an ng client application, there's a button, show me. You know how the diagram should look. It's part of the URL and point to that page which then renders it. You can host this as a service in your in-house, or you can use PlantUML as a Java library to render this diagram and show it. So that's all possible. Let's go back to that one. Forgive me. Come on. What's happening? So, this all was about text defining diagrams, but you also can use a logo. Sometimes you want to have a graphic inside of a diagram. That's possible as well. So this diagram here just renders the Servoy logo. So we have the start UML, we have the sprite thingy, we have this one here. So easy to do. How do you do that? Now it's easy. Let's see. If you install PlantUML on your machine, then you have a Java thingy you can launch, and I'll try to show it if I find it. Just a second. So that's not the one. Let's take this one. So that's the really cool UX of PlantUML. It's really a toolkit, yeah? So let's say we want to have a screenshot of, let's say, that one here, just this button. Huh? I copy it to my clipboard and go here to open sprite window. It now sees that something is in my clipboard, and this is the representation of that graphic. Yeah. So, okay. So you just copy and paste that into your diagram, and here we go. Believe me, it works. So this is useful to have logos in your thingy, or if you want to have really a screenshot which makes clear what's happening in that diagram. Okay. So so next point, not the last point, but this point here is, why does it make sense to embed diagrams in your code? Is that a question you are questioning yourself? All asleep? Okay. So let's have a look at Servoy. Let's see this one. So, simple code. On the right side, there is a window, a view from PlantUML. You can activate this if you go to Show View after you install the plugin. Yeah? Then you have others, and then you have PlantUML, and then you can open just one of these views. So this thingy is a JavaScript file. And that's just some command, and you will see here again. This is my diagram, and if I click here, I can see it on the right side. You can see that as well, yeah. You can here export it to several formats. You can just, if you want to, copy it to a PNG file or whatever, or SVG file. But you also can make the UML thingy as part of your code. So if you have some kind of documentation for a method, then you can put it in the header of your method. Yeah? Here again, you have start UML and UML. So, and if you write it there, it will be under Git. And if you do a Git compare, you will see, okay, this is changed. That's much easier to see than to follow something in your code. You see some lines change, but you will not see how the logic changed, possibly. So let's make a teaser first so that you get awake. Who of you is using JSON? Most of you. JSON is easy to read, yeah? It's readable, but it's not easy to read. What about this one here? Ooh. It's the only thing I needed to do for this diagram. That looks nice, yeah? So this is a hierarchical JSON. We have some highlighted columns. Okay, not too bad. So the only thing I needed to do is, again, this is not start UML, it's start JSON, and at the bottom it's end JSON. And then I put in these highlight commands because these are the ones I want to highlight. That's all. Easy way to add something to your documentation or use it somewhere. Easy peasy. Now you are a fan of PlantUML, huh? Aren't you? Okay. Let's see this one. This is something I used to understand an application I was working on. Yeah, I'm really using different kinds of association. So this means is part of it. Might be that UML needs a filter thingy or whatever. I don't care, but I know this form is part of that form. Here we have two sprites, and I see the inheritance of all this stuff, and it's much easier for me to understand how is this one really put together. And the code for that is not that much. It's not really that much. I can show that. Don't think about the sprites. These are the screenshots. Okay, a little bit pimped by my header. So this is just, I'm defining a class, AMS base. That's the topmost form here. That's simple. If you use this, let's say I want to have another class, AMS base 1, then somewhere second form will appear. Not sure where. We have a refresh problem. Here it is, yeah? So sometimes you need to click in and out. So now you have a new form, yeah? You can see it? So it's pretty easy to extend this diagram, yeah? New form is relevant in the context, add it here. And if you want to add some methods to a form, then it's this one, yeah? Just have this parameter, you know what I mean, and write here just your method name here, yeah? So that's the method which is interesting for me. Easy. Huh? So where is it in the diagram? So it's here. So then there are a lot of arrows. Where do they come from? So here. So here we have it. Yeah? So this is just the section which defines which connections do we have. So that's mainly its inheritance. Yeah? Or for the other parts, for these guys here, we just use a different type of arrow. So here you can define the arrow. Let's see. Here we have the others. Yeah. I always hit the right type only at the second try, so who cares? you immediately see it. Yeah. I think that's pretty helpful to document complicated parts of your application. That can even be a little bit more advanced. So this one here is an example of something I worked on. Yeah. So you all know we can have code in scopes, in forms, in tables, because we have entity methods and calculations. So that's totally different in other environments. So, and in PlantUML, this one here it's a class, but instead of putting class in front of it, you just put entity in front of it, and it gets rendered a little bit different than the class. And here you have tables and methods. And what I did is I just put some colors into this diagram. So the red ones are new methods. I easily can see where the methods are. The green ones are the ones which changed. I changed some code. And the turquoise, what is it? What's the color? Turquoise? No. Purple. The purple ones, these are methods I moved somewhere. I elaborated this one throughout a period of a couple of weeks. I worked on a feature, and I need to close this down, do something else, come back. Hey, that's pretty complicated. Where am I coming from? Where do I need to continue? And then I just elaborated that one. Okay, I need a new method there. I cannot keep it there. I need to move it there. And that helped me really to keep track on what I was doing. I don't think that this is the right way to document everything, but sometimes this might help. And again, this is part of your Git repository. You can easily see what changed in that commit if you do it. Anything else on that one? No. So, what else do we have? Let's see that one here. Come on. Sometimes, as I said, it doesn't want to refresh. Okay, if that one doesn't want to refresh, I take the code, go to Visual Studio Code, put it in here, try it. Come on. Okay, what's that? Don't mind too much about that one. That's a part of inheritance hierarchy of forms. So we are at least 5 levels deep, really broad. What form is inheriting from what form? And if you believe me or not, this was not made by hand. Might be something which is interesting for you, because we only have this small window which shows the inheritance tree up from the current form. If you press F4 again, it shows the tree down. But sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes at least me, I need something aside my Servoy developer to see, okay, I'm here, I have to look there. If I change a method somewhere, that's much more of information I can see. And if it gets complicated, that helps. I said I did not write that by hand. I can show you what I did. So, close all. So here we have a media folder called PlantUML, and I have a workspace called PlantUML forms. I do this one, debug this method, which is called demo. Go back here, generated forms. This was not available before that. Come on, please show it. No, doesn't want to refresh. Okay, go back, go to code. So that's just forms from, or some forms from the example solution. You can use this to on your own application. So it's 150 lines of code. Currently it has all the methods in there. I can think of just showing the if it's protected, if it's private. That's not that much of work. You can do that. I can think of is it an abstract form or not. It would be helpful. Shouldn't be easy. So what I have is what Servoy calls an MVP. In the Foxborough world, this is the most valuable professional. But here in the Servoy world, it's a most valuable, the minimal valuable product. So it's easy to use. You can have it. So if okay, forgot to mention. What I wrote is something where you can just say start with this form, and then it goes up the tree and shows everything which is below that. So not the full model gets populated. I think that's pretty similar to what we have in this hierarchy thingy. It might be helpful. So, how do I use this in real projects? Here we have a larger project, and as I said, sometimes it's one problem is if your documentation gets out of sync with your code. So how do you know how that you have some kind of PlantUML documentation for in your code? Either you embed it in your code itself. That is possible, but it tends to get nasty. So I think the best way is to have separate files. I put them in a folder called PlantUML, in the media folder. And in my code, I have something like this, just markers. So in this case, it's a hash I2 hash. So let's see. This is a marker for me. I have documentation for that one. Search for that. Okay, so here is something in the PlantUML folder. So that might be the documentation or the graphics for that code part. And why did I create that one? So let's see that one. I'll open that one. And let's go back here. So that's some kind of typical code I'm confronted with. So we are somewhere in an if. Yeah? Okay? So, and that's not that way coded because someone had a bad day or something like that. It's really needed like that. Okay, you could refactor it or something like that, but it really makes sense to have this kind of code there. It's really, that's a complicated code, I would say. Yeah? And my diagram shows something like this. So, that's oh, it's Deutsche Bahn. So what is? I have a few things which are positive about that. So if I'm in a discussion with the customer, he says we need to change the logic somewhere. Then I'm talking about are we talking about this one here? Hash A1 hash. Yeah, that's the point where we need to change the logic. Oh, then it's easy for me to see this in my diagram and to find it in code. So that's the point where I need to change my code. Otherwise, if I change the code, I know where I need to have a look at the diagram. So that's a pretty simple way to keep this all in sync. Another thing, if you put all these things in a folder that is called PlantUML, and you look for Servoy resources, then you have an overview of what's available as documentation in that application. If they are named correctly, okay, nice. How much time do I have? 3 minutes? Perfect fit. Okay. So the last one I want to show. Let's go back. So there is another one, another scope file, which is called PlantUML database. I have a demo method in there. I debug this method. I go back to the media folder. And now I have a generated ERD thingy. Come on, refresh, please. Okay. That's demo. Hey, this is your database. So this is the example database, which I just walked through and created this diagram. So for each of the each relation is in there. You have the names of the relations and you have the keys of the relations. Okay. Screenshot, put it in a Word document, €1,000, fine. Any questions? Good. Thank you for visiting.